Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar called What's New with CK-12. I'm Lindsay, and my colleague Katie and I will be walking you through the newest releases from CK-12, including our teacher assistant, our student tutor, and our Flexlets.
We're so glad to have you with us today and are excited to share everything CK-12 has been working on to support student learning and assist you with teaching. Our team is constantly updating our platform to make the experience more seamless for you and to offer you the latest in learning and technological tools for your class or for independent learning. Our goal in this session is to give you an overview of our current unified offerings and show you the power of the CK-12 Flexbook 2.0 platform. So we'll start with talking about our teacher assistant and our student tutor. So you saw just a second ago the teacher assistant, moving through the student tutor opportunities and what we have there. And then once we go through that, we'll kind of do some live demos and come back and talk about some of our content updates, as well as what we have for you in new learning and support resources. So you'll see kind of all of those different pieces as we go through today's webinar. And so we hope you're as excited as we are.
Awesome. Before we really get into it here, let's make sure everyone is comfortable with their Zoom windows. You should be seeing two different options on your screen, one for Q&A and one for chat. How we like to use this is that if you have a question that you would like the CK-12 team to answer, please post that in the Q&A window. That's the window we'll be monitoring throughout the presentation, and we have several team members who can type answers, or we'll flag them and have Katie answer them live. The chat window is a place for community conversation. A few of you have already introduced yourselves and told us where you're from. That's awesome. We love it. If more of you want to jump on and do that, that's great. Share resources, share thoughts about what we are going to show you with our student tutor and teacher assistant. We love hearing your comments in the chat window. Just make sure in the chat window that you do send your messages to all panelists and attendees. You have to actually change that. Otherwise, it just goes to CK-12 and the panelists, and we want everybody to be able to see what's in that chat window. I'd also like to remind you that we're recording this webinar, and it will be available on our webinars page at ck12.org/webinars in the archived section in the next 24 hours if you want to revisit anything you learned today, or if you want to share the presentation with a friend or a colleague. All right, well, I think we're going to just jump right into it here. So throughout CK-12's history, we've attempted to support teachers so that they can focus on helping students learn. With each development, we've tried to assist you with tools to save time and improve learning. With the advent of our Flexbook 2.0 platform, we've been able to go beyond our customization tools and basic reports to include our newest insights and even pop-up notifications. So let's take a few minutes to talk about how this tool can empower your teaching. We're going to show you a few slides, and then Katie's going to demo this live for you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, it's great to see everyone kind of saying hello as we're going through, starting to swap over to that everyone, which is awesome. And so, yeah, our first thing is this teacher assistant. There's kind of two big categories. A lot of these pieces have been available in parts, and we've been rolling more and more of them out, especially in the last few months. So one of the big things we want to talk about is improving student learning outcomes. So we recently released the opportunity to see kind of a class view. You can see patterns between their skill level or their quiz score and how they engaged with a 2.0 lesson. We're going to actually give you insights. So maybe it's something like 3 students in your class are doing exceptionally well in this concept, or the students that all tried out this particular interactive that's embedded did really well on this concept. Maybe then the recommendation that comes with that is maybe have students go ahead and try that if they're struggling. So you'll see more and more of these resources that kind of help you as a teacher gain an understanding of how students are doing and what they're looking for and what they might need for support. And hopefully that will help you improve student outcomes. The next part of this is the idea of saving time. So we really wanted to make things as seamless as possible. So the first thing is that we have 4 options for you for using learning management systems or the CK-12 classes. If you're using Google Classroom or Canvas or Schoology, those auto grade your assignments. That's something that kind of we've slowly developed more and more. And from there, you can actually access not just the grades that show up in CK-12 classes or that matching learning management system, but actually a heat map grade report that gives you a really good sense of how your students are doing. And I know that that's something that Schoology users were super excited, just came out recently because we were able to kind of make that work out. And then using kind of that map and those insights and all those pieces, hopefully that helps you, quickly get a sense of where students may be struggling. If you are choosing to customize a Flexbook, what you might want to adjust so that next year, kind of that great teacher strategy of teaching something, iterating on it, reteaching it another time, and hopefully these insights will help save you time as you think through what that might look like. So those are kind of the 2 big areas with all those different components. As we said, some of those have been live for a while. Some of them are slowly getting added more and more. And the biggest thing to kind of keep in mind is that class insight piece. So hopefully you will get to appreciate those even more.
Awesome. So while we're talking about class reports, I do want to take a second to point out a few new options you'll see in the details for any student. First of all, you can see the option to access insights right from this page, allowing you to jump there instead of navigating back to assignments. You can also click on the ellipsis and delete an assignment if you accidentally added one you don't need. Make sure you also delete the matching post in your LMS if you assigned it in there. I think that was somebody's question in chat earlier. Delete it in both places.
It looked like there were some questions. We send information to your learning management system, so just keep in mind that that's not something that works backwards. So if you make a change there, you would have to match it on here. So try to assign cleanly through there. But if you did have to delete something in Google Classroom or somewhere else, you could come back and delete the matching assignment in CK-12.
Great. And then for those of you who are using Google Classroom as your LMSs, you can now turn in work for your students if they forget to click the turn in button. So that's kind of a big deal as well.
Yeah. The other thing I want to point out, especially related to LMS, that first option down at the bottom where it says create or connect a class, there's some more information on learning management systems there. But at the bottom of the teacher page where we kind of unified all these new opportunities as your assistant, there is a link to a remote learning hub. And this gives you some great information, especially for those of you guys that are working on remote or hybrid learning. Check those out for quick videos, getting started, all sorts of fun options as you go through there.
All right, so we just talked about the teacher assistant briefly, but for CK-12, our mission has always been about learning and access, and our student tutor is a way to equalize education. We have students from around the world coming to CK-12 looking for high quality content that they can study on their own, even if they don't have access to a teacher or a school who's giving them the curriculum. So that's why we created Flexi. Flexi is our tutor who can play an important role in the learning journey of any student. And we're going to have a banner linking to this on the student page at some point this week, but you can preview this page and what Katie's going to show you next at ck12.org/student-tutor.
Thanks, Lindsay. So we really kind of believe in supporting students throughout their learning. And so there's a number of different areas and ways that this helps. So first of all, this is CIS Learning. We get immediate feedback. You can learn complex ideas. We really support student learning across the resources we offer, from interactives to real world applications to our core lessons and practice from there. One cool new thing, this is one of the newer pieces of the student tutor kind of unified, is the ability to answer questions. We're just checking this out on our science content. So if you are a science teacher using FlexBooks 2.0, you might start seeing the opportunity to ask our system a question. I'll demo this in a little bit, but know that we're just kind of using it in one area. And then as we build it out, we'll continue to expand the offering for that Flexi answering specific questions that you might have. The next piece is checking understanding. So there's a couple different ways this happens. This happens especially with inline questions that we have built into our newest middle school math content, upper math content, and I know our science team is looking at opportunities for that as well. But you'll see inline questions, or you can build your own. And these give students feedback right on the spot, help them understand, figure out what's happening. Similarly, if they're in practice, we'll maybe give them a chance to pop up a hint, try a prereq concept if they're struggling, get them another chance to work through there. So really supporting that learning both as they're learning and as they're practicing to go through from that piece. The last couple parts that we want to talk about in regards to this is the ability to guide this journey. So Flexi is going to help students by reminding them that they have an assignment due, maybe it's time to check out the next concept, different pieces to kind of guide them on work that might be overdue or things like that to help them as they are going from there. And the last part, which is something that students have had access to before, but is now kind of right there in our 2.0 lessons, is the report on attached practice. And that gives them information on the time they spent, the level of questions, and the questions and answers themselves. So they can start answering the questions of how am I doing? How can I improve? What am I missing? And more. So hopefully these different parts kind of brought together in this new student tutor will just continue to support student learning as we go. So I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and borrow the screen, and we are going to walk you through what this looks like from a teacher perspective, as well as from a student perspective. So hopefully you can all see my home page from a teacher. It says that free assistant for every teacher. If you click on that, you can learn more. And we showed you briefly what this looks like with some of this information, but go ahead and check out that page and explore it and kind of figure out what's happening. With that, I want to actually dive into a class and get a sense of some of the cooler pieces that work from here. So if I click on my class, and this would be the same if you're accessing this through Google Classroom or Canvas or Schoology, you're going to go ahead and open up an assignment or open up reports, and you're going to get some great information here. So this is a sample class. There's a few students in here. You can see that this Jumpstart student, which I'm going to demo in a second, hasn't done any of these assignments. I left them open and free to show you what it looks like from their perspective. But Katie's done a bunch and Ryan's done some. If I click on Katie's practice here, you can see that she got that 10 out of 10 correct, skills developing, levels of questions, and the actual answers and pieces here. And I can open up this class insight piece. But before I do that, I'm going to click on Ryan. Now it looks like Ryan also started this. So let's go ahead and click there, but hasn't turned this in yet. So this is the opportunity that's just came out for those of you that are using Google Classroom or CK-12 classes. I can actually submit this for Ryan. So Ryan forgot to turn this in, but it actually looks like he's done it. He even has 100%. Maybe if he only had 10%, I'd leave it and let him continue working, but he has 100%. So I can go ahead and click turn in. And if I turn that in for him, then that grade would start populating. I'm going to hold off for just a second to show you what it looks like on Insights as well. So we just made Insights available from here. If you click on that link, it will open up the Matching 2.0 Flexbook lesson, gives you a little pop-up with some information, and gets you started right inside here. So if you guys were using Insights beforehand, you can see kind of the information for a single student. You might have seen this piece, but we've actually added this whole class feature. And right now you're seeing the newest parts from Flexi. It says you can always nudge students to remind them. Reports help you analyze strengths and weaknesses. So there's all sorts of information here. And I can actually open this up and see tasks and more information. So we're going to go ahead and leave Flexi down there. And I'm going to go back to Insights, which I can access via this nice little lightning bolt. And I get this whole class. Now, remember, Katie was the only one that submitted this. Ryan hasn't submitted this yet, so he's not showing up here. Jumpstart hasn't submitted this yet, not showing up here. But if I click on this particular student, I can see the developing level, engagement, and time on read. And I can start seeing some insights. So one student in your class has started but not turned this in. Let's see who that is. Oh, Ryan, that makes sense. So that's just a helpful piece of information as I go through from there. And then if I clicked on Katie, who actually did all this work, time on read, lesson developing, and engagement. All sorts of great information, both at the student level, even down to where that time was spent. You can see 32 seconds here, 20 seconds there, a minute and 16 seconds trying out the interactive. All of that information is available there. And this is actually a lesson from our newest geometry content, which we'll talk about a bit more in a bit. But you can see it actually tells you what the line segment is, an endpoint, array, all of this information. You can kind of check out different pieces and explore directly within here. So we continue to add more interactivity as we go through. You get some feedback right there, all sorts of ways. I'm seeing exactly what a student would be seeing in terms of the lesson itself. But as a teacher with insights, I'm getting this extra information on where Katie spent her time or how the whole class is doing. So go ahead and check that out from insights, or check it out from within kind of this newer content if you happen to be teaching geometry, because that's a great little preview and helpful piece of information. Let's go ahead back to that class. I can go ahead and turn that in for Ryan. And then I'll start seeing that score. So I submitted that score for him. We're good to go, all set from there. If I looked at a quiz, let's say, it's a little bit different. Quizzes, I might allow for multiple attempts. That's practice that I might have customized, or maybe I used one of the quizzes CK-12 has made in certain FlexBooks. But I can see the attempts. I can actually view the details on this attempt or the previous attempt, get a second to understand what happens. I'm the teacher, so I can see both the correct answer and the answer they messed up. For students, they'll see that correct answer after the due date, but they'll see how they did. And I can go ahead and view these details. Now you can see that this has been turned in. Let's say I needed to allow them to turn it in after a due date and they did maybe another attempt that I could see here. I could actually turn that later attempt in for them as well using that feature. So you're seeing once again all of this information. And this is the same report that the students will see. It really gives them a chance to self-assess and figure out how they're doing, what they might need to explore further. And I'm going to once again open this class insight for this lesson. And this happens to be a Flexlet that I pulled. And we're going to talk about Flexlets a little bit later on. But I'm going to go ahead and look down at this particular lesson. This is a book that I customized, hence my physical science prep instead of just the general CK-12 physical science prep piece. It says I have one new notification, so let's go ahead and see what that is. It says, oh, now I have insights for that angles and lines piece on that fall assessment as well. So I have insights for both of these classes right now. I can go ahead and explore this physical science prep option. We're going to close that for here. And you'll see that it has the core content in here and an attached quiz. So I actually swapped out that practice for a quiz, wanted to kind of pick the 7 questions. Every kid gets the same 7 questions and I'm good to go. And if I check on insights, you'll see the same graph, but on the left side, instead of kind of that y-axis, instead of the skill level for practice, I see my quiz score. And I can find out more information by clicking on any student's name. And it says 2 students are doing exceptionally well on this concept. You may assign them the next concept to keep these students challenged. So maybe some suggestions to go from here. We also have, because I'm in a science concept, as I said, we have some of these opportunities to ask some questions. So maybe, how do igneous rocks form? And you'll see that it's pulling some information from our system, and it's hot fluid rock such as lava or magma cools and crystallizes. So students can go ahead and do the same thing. They can ask a question. It's going to search our content, see if we have an answer for them for that particular topic. Right now, as I said, this is for science content. They'll start seeing it there as we go through. So some really cool pieces in terms of insights, notifications, helpful information, opportunities in our class report, both for the, here's a class for CK-12, or I can access this from an LMS. And we're going to talk about that, as I said, a bit further. I'm going to go ahead and swap over and let's talk about a student opportunity. So let's go ahead and switch screens. And in here, you'll see this is a student. We have some opportunities to kind of explore content. Similarly to anything previous, I can open up a Plix Interactive. I can explore. None of this process has changed. This still allows students to go ahead and try things out, figure out what's happening, answer some questions. Let's see if we get a question right here. We can go through. They have to start exploring and submitting and working their way through from that piece. So that's an option, normal things. For 2.0 lessons, that's where the really cool new pieces come in. So let's go ahead and look at this angles and lines piece from the student perspective. As you can see, it looks very similar to the teacher one. They just have a turn in option at the top and they can start their practice. We have a note here. Flexi is kind of just introducing itself to the student, giving them a chance to see tasks. This is a math lesson, so they can see we have an assignment here. We have another 2.0 lesson. Anything in that newer platform will show up as a task piece there. And then they can go ahead and they can explore 2 endpoints, an angle, maybe start that practice as they're practicing. Flexi is available here. So let's go ahead and check out that hint. We got a video that they can watch about lines for this piece, check it, and work their way through. Now let's say I get something wrong. I'm going to go ahead and check that. Let's give it one more try. Maybe I need a hint. And we're going to go ahead and try again and check that. And as we go through, the skill level will begin developing. You can use Flexi for support, as well as kind of the regular opportunities within this piece, our standard scratch pad if they need to go through pieces. So we're now just incorporating more opportunities for support and learning as we go through. Let's go ahead and look at the other assignment that's in 2.0. So our density lesson, as I said, this is from one of our short Flexbooks, which we'll talk about in a minute. But in this case, in addition to the tasks that the student has for those 2 different lessons, we also have the opportunity to ask questions. So we could say, what is odd about Pluto's orbit? Let's see what we get. It's highly elliptical. Sometimes it brings it closer to Neptune, while other times it's further away. Now, as we said, we are adjusting this, going through what are the names of the dwarf planets. Now, these are questions that students have actually been asking, and these are some of the answers they've been getting. So if I go ahead and I type in the dwarf planets in our solar system, you'll see here that we get some information about the planets in our solar system, and that, oh, look, here it is. There's also 5 known dwarf planets: Pluto, Makemake, Maya, Eris, Ceres, all sorts of great information there. And they can go ahead and maybe that helps them answer some questions if they're trying to figure out what's happening. So as we said, that's available there. Once they're done, they can submit their work and turn in their work. So if I actually did this quiz here and started it, this is on density. Now you'll see that maybe I turn the hints off on this particular quiz. Maybe I'm still using this hint. So that Flexi opportunity for them to ask questions is available in practice, not necessarily in your quiz at this point in time. So just note where that's available. I can exit this practice, submit the work I've done, and because I've started it, I can turn this in, but it's going to warn me I'm turning in a score of 14%. So let's go ahead and turn that in. I could retake it again and submit a greater score as we go through from here, or I could try something different and explore Flexi a little more. So you have some different opportunities. Hopefully the pieces here where I'm going to review my answers, explore a bit, see what's happening. I only answered 1 question, so that makes sense. And turning stuff in and going from there, plus the matching teacher side, where you can actually see how students are doing and get those insights and really work from there. So I think with that, that's kind of the big pieces I wanted to walk through. I do want to just point out while I'm on the site before we talk about them more, under Explore, I mentioned Flexlets here. So go ahead and explore some of our Flexlets. We'll talk about them a bit more in a second. And under Subjects, our geometry book under Math by Level. That's got some of that super cool new interactive pieces. So Lindsay, how are we doing on questions?
Well, we've had quite a few coming in, and our team's been typing up some answers. We have flagged a few for folks. Before I pepper you with a few questions, I would just like to encourage you all in the chat window. You know, what are you seeing that you're really liking, that you think will be useful for you as a teacher, or that will be useful for your students? Because we're really showing you a couple of different things. We're showing you, if you're an educator, all of the new insights and recommendations and analytics that you can see to better inform your teaching and help your students learn. And then for folks who, like I said, those students who maybe don't have access to those teachers or who are wanting to get ahead or wanting to review, they're able to take advantage of Flexi and navigate through the content themselves. So we're hoping that you're finding something here that's going to help you as educators, or again, help your students engage with the learning. So feel free to chime in that community conversation in the chat window. And in case we didn't mention it earlier, I assume most of you are familiar with CK-12 and you know that this is all free. We do not charge for any of the content. You do not have to put in a credit card number. So all of this is free. We just want you to take advantage of it and spread the word and tell more people, and let our site do the heavy lifting for you. Katie, a couple questions that came in. When you were showing the insights earlier, I think there were a few questions about that student engagement score versus the skill level score, if you want to go into detail about that.
Sure, yeah. So this is an example of a lesson with a quiz attached to it. So the engagement and the time on the lesson are similar to that practice piece. So time on lesson is pretty cleanly defined. You can actually see, if I'm looking at, it looks like I'm looking at Ryan right now. Okay, I can see that Ryan spent 8 minutes and 49 seconds reviewing this video. That might be over a couple times because it'll add if he goes back and kind of checks it out. A minute and 14 seconds kind of here, maybe thinking about that question and answer. So you can see not only the total time, but actually where they spent their time on that lesson. And then engagement, if you actually click on this little eye, it gives you a little more information. It says it's calculated based on an algorithm. It takes into account the time they spent on the lesson and how they interacted with the concept. So in this case, we have a video to interact with, and maybe the student actually did a summary where they said they used the highlighting feature, added a note there. I can kind of highlight that and add a note that says definition. And then the student could go ahead and see those notes for themselves. So that's a different way that they might interact with it. So that's how it measures the text time as well as the engagement. The skill level for practice. So right now this is a quiz score in the middle, but if it was practice, it would be based on how they did on questions, based on easy, medium, and hard questions, and the available questions. So that would swap that piece out.
Katie, a follow-up to that, is there currently any way for students to see their engagement score, or is that just teacher facing right now?
At this point, that's teacher facing. They would see their skill level in their practice report. So kind of the side report that you got as a user when I first did that for practice, or that you saw, students would be able to see that. But they're right now, the time on lesson and the engagement is something that's available for teachers to get a sense of how things are doing. Feel free to share that you can see the time on lesson for them, because I know some teachers have asked, my students just skipped a practice, what do I do? And I say, tell them you can see that they skipped a practice. And then all of a sudden they start actually realizing their teacher can see the time on lesson, and go from there.
Exactly. Just another tool to help with accountability and keeping your students on track as they're working, whether in class with you or remotely. Katie, a lot of activity talking about learning management systems. Some users are saying, I had no idea you integrated with Google Classroom. That's amazing. We had some Schoology and Canvas users. I know in the chat window, there was just a little conversation about Microsoft Teams. We do not have any grade passback functionality with Microsoft Teams at this time. But for those of you who are using Google Classroom, Schoology, and Canvas, Katie, do you know about the nudge reminder? When we remind students about their assignments, is that going to show up across the learning management systems as well?
It's going to show up within Flexbook 2.0. So right here, you can see as a teacher, I have this all task information. I have information here. So students are going to see that. Depending on their email access, they may also get an email nudge reminding them that they have an assignment due, but I know a lot of student accounts don't accept external emails, so our system wouldn't be able to send them that. So it would be more kind of this pop-up Flexi as they're working through the next lesson. They get a little, hey, you have an overdue, kind of in this task piece, you have an overdue assignment or something like that.
Okay, these are all great questions. Keep them coming. We will take some more questions here in just a moment, and of course, we've got our team answering questions live as well, or typing the answers to you. But let's jump back in and talk about some of our newest content offerings. Katie's already alluded to several of these, but let's do some review of more things that you can take advantage of on CK-12.
Yeah, so I showed you just the density page from our science Flexbook, or FlexLit, excuse me. So for this past summer, we created a set of Flexlets, kind of short review books, but they're not really just for summer. I know teachers are using them as their core content. They're using them as a review at the beginning of a school year. They're using them to support students who need additional support for a lesson. So they're kind of great, quick, key concepts based both on usage of our concepts as well as our team of amazing teachers that said, hey, this one's really important. I want to make sure that we cover this in this lesson. So go ahead and check out both our math and our science Flexlets to help students prepare for or review content in middle school and high school math and science. I showed you a page from our geometry Flexbook. So we have our interactive geometry Flexbook. That's got kind of some of the coolest, newest interactives in there where students can actually just play with different lines and graphs and transformations and proofs. So go ahead to FlexBooks 2.0 and hit on math, or that link to get to the math options, or just simply click on subjects and the geometry under level, and you'll get to this book to explore it. We have a couple other pieces. Our science team is doing some cool stuff as well. We built out our physics sims first, and then our chemistry simulations. We recently launched the worksheets that go with that. So those are great guides to work your way through a simulation, and helpful if you want students to kind of answer separate questions, whether they upload that as a Google Doc or something like that. All sorts of options. We are also, I know kind of the intro videos for our physics ones are getting voiced down the road. So we have what's here now, and we're always working to make this product even better. Along those lines, we have a couple more math resources coming. Our Algebra 2 book is getting an overhaul with some cool new interactives and inline questions in there, so check that out. And we have a set of elementary math resources. They're not really like a textbook for kids, but they're more a reference book there that you are welcome to use to kind of guide teaching in elementary, and they're aligned with practice and different pieces like that. So go ahead and check those out as we continue to release those resources for us.
Okay, so why don't we just kind of put out an all call for questions to come in. We're going to give just a little bit more information about learning management systems, and I think some useful tools as you guys are exploring those additional resources. And then we will come back to that Q&A window and wrap up with any additional questions or demonstrations that are needed.
Great. So we have had some questions on Google Classroom already. We actually created some great resources for you, our LMS Landing Pages, as we call them. The first one is available at CK-12.org/Google Classroom.
Yeah, I think that link is wrong. I'm gonna change it right now live, Katie, because yeah, we got rid of that info, right?
So short link, it will actually redirect you to our resource pages on info, but the short link is CK-12.org/G-Classroom for Google Classroom. That will get you to that page. And it has some videos at the bottom, some steps to overhaul. We have a similar one for Canvas, same deal, CK-12.org/Canvas. The right side, the guides have links to our help desk articles, and similarly one for Schoology as well. So CK-12.org/Schoology. So as I said, when we were on that remote learning hub page, there are also quick links on there, but there's some great options. And then one of the newest things, so especially if you were in Schoology and didn't have access to class reports before, we actually made it so much easier to access class reports from any of those resources. You can see on the left the link for a link in Google Classroom for an assignment, a link in Canvas for an assignment, and a link in Schoology for an assignment. Every single one of those, when you click on that link, students get dropped right into the assignment, and you as a teacher can preview that assignment, or you can go to that class report page, which is what I was showing directly on CK-12. So we've made it abundantly easier to access those reports. And then now you can access class insights right from those reports for any 2.0 lesson.
Yeah, another great resource, if you've never checked out our YouTube channel, you will find a range of videos from content tutorials to testimonials to all of our previous webinars. I would like to call special attention to the quick overviews playlist that's recently been updated. These are bite-sized videos, only a couple of minutes in length, that quickly get you the help you need on a variety of CK-12 tasks. And we keep adding to this. So pretty soon we're going to have those quick overviews on the student tutor and the teacher assistant. But right now you can see you can find a lot about the learning management systems, or just using search on CK-12, exploring CK-12, knowing more about insights. So I do encourage you to check out the quick overview videos. We're also thrilled that we have a relaunched certified educator program. It is now a self-paced professional development program that guides you in diving deeper into all of CK-12's tools and resources. It's like everything on CK-12, it's completely free. You'll get to join a community of educators becoming certified at no cost and on your own schedule. So if you are interested in learning more and just, becoming more proficient with CK-12 and upping your skills, you can go to ck12.org/certified and click join. And that will get you registered for the program and place you into a class. And then we have more webinars coming up in November. We have one called CK-12, a flexible learning solution. That's strategies to implement CK-12 in various environments. You can register for that and also find archived recordings on our webinars page at ck12.org/webinars. And then the testimonials page that's found in the footer under the Explore menu, or at ck12.org/testimonials, is another place to hear from students and educators about CK-12 products and how they're being used in the classroom. We've done a lot of traveling back when travel was a thing. It seems like a lifetime ago now, but we did a lot of traveling, visiting a lot of schools, capturing stories. So feel free to see what students, administrators, teachers, see what everybody says about CK-12. And then the overview page at ck12.org/overview. This is a great place if you want to learn more about our platform and resources and would like an easy page to share with your colleagues. You can also download a quick brochure on this page as well if you would like. And then don't forget, we have a very comprehensive help desk, ck12.org/help. If you need to go back and get some assistance on any of these skills and learn more about it, I would check that out. So we're going to go ahead and thank you and kind of end on this note with, if you need any special support, technical support, reach out to us, support@ck12.org. We'll get you that. And then also, we would love for you to stay in contact with us via social media. If you're a Twitter user, it would be great if you would share something you learned in today's webinar, or share a link to CK-12 with your colleagues. We would love to retweet it and shout it out. And it just makes us happy when we see some users spreading the word like that. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, you'll find us at CK-12 Foundation, but please make sure to pass the word along. So if any of you need to jump off and you feel like all your questions were answered, go ahead and we will say goodbye to you and see you on a future webinar. But right now, Katie's probably had a chance to look at the Q&A window. So we're going to go back to some demonstrations and answer some questions there.
We had a couple of questions about kind of finding adaptive practice by different opportunities. So one thing, if you're looking for Common Core standards or NGSS standards under Explore, go ahead and click on the matching one. For Common Core, which is the particular example, you can kind of pick the standard and then go to the relevant page. This brings you to one of our older concept pages, but you can see here that there's practice here. So that would relate to that particular resource. You can do the same thing for kind of our older math content under subjects. So you could look for particular resources there. But in reality, if you're looking for the practice that aligns with, I think one of them was Algebra 1 or Algebra 2, we really recommend that you use this Flexbook as a resource that goes from here, because that's what's going to give you those insights. You're not going to see any of those insights on time spent on lesson or recommendations unless you actually work from here. And then you can say on representing linear functions, if I click start, I can assign this to my students right from here, and the matching practice is attached. So kind of keep that in mind as you go through from here. It says student tutor, where's that button show up? So the student tutor is kind of incorporated across our site. You'll see Flexi show up as a teacher assistant. Same thing on the student side in terms of notifications and tasks and information. And then in science, we'll answer some other pieces. If you're looking for that page, right now, you can actually get to it by going to the homepage as a teacher And when you click on the matching page for teachers, you can actually scroll all the way to the bottom. And if you're a student, take the tour, and that will jump you to the student page. It's actually going to be live on the student homepage shortly, but that's kind of a quick go around. Our two places for webinar tutorials or information under webinars, we kind of have those longer pieces, and then we shared a link earlier to our YouTube channel. So if you go to ck12.org/YouTube, sorry, other way around. If you go to YouTube and search CK12 Foundation or YouTube CK12 Foundation, and you go there, you can see under our playlist some great quick videos. And this has some of the same videos you'll see on those learning management pages. Someone asked about a video for turning in earlier. So turning in student work for CK12. This video talks about it kind of from the initial page on a CK12 class. But if you just jump to the actual lesson, you can see kind of how they would go through that practice and how they would turn it in as you go from there. So looks like it's kind of loading and they can see the turn in button. So just warn them that that's from the CK12 class perspective, but that might still walk them through how to turn in content.
It looks like we've cleared out the Q&A unless anything pops in there really quickly. I just wanted to thank all of you for your positive comments in the chat window. It's a lot of fun for our team to kind of see what's exciting you. It's nice of those of you who said thank you for this great resource. Best resource we've found in years. That's awesome. Like I said, just make sure to share it with any colleagues, with any students, anybody you think could benefit from CK12. And know that we're here to support you. Should you need any additional help, support@ck12.org. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and sign off for today. And like I said, hopefully we'll see you on a future webinar.